Hi folks, Dr. P here. This is question number 16 from the Rational Expressions and Equations assignment. Simplify the following, stating the non-permissible values as restrictions on the variable. So what we need to do here is we need to find a lowest common denominator, because we're subtracting quotients here, or rational expressions. So to help us find the lowest common denominator, we're going to the first quotient or rational expression looks the same. In the second one, we're going to factor out a -1 from the binomial in the denominator. If we do that, and then we reverse the order of the terms, we're going to get -1 times x minus 1. And we can check that this factoring works just by multiplying the -1 back into the bracket. -1 times x is -x. -1 times -1 is +1. And now we can see that our lowest common denominator here is going to be -1 times x minus 1. So now we can put this on a common division line. The denominator is -x minus 1. And then the first term here, the numerator 2, has to become -2 because we're multiplying it by -1. That's the factor that's missing in the denominator, right? So it's going to be -2, and then minus, and it's just a 1. 2 minus -2 minus 1 is -3 over -x minus 1. The minus signs cancel, and we're left with 3 over x minus 1. And then the non-permissible values. Well, if we take a look at the denominator here, the non-permissible value for x is 1. And then we check all the other denominators to make sure that there are no additional non-permissible values. So here is our simplified expression with the restrictions stated. In B, we're going to follow along the same process here. So we're going to first factor. We're going to factor that binomial right there. So this stays the same. And over here we're going to factor out a -1, which means we're left with a -m as a monomial times whatever is remaining of this binomial, which is going to be -7 and +5. We're also going to reverse the order of them, so it's going to be +5 and -7. And now we can see that we have this binomial here, which is the same as this binomial here. So the lowest common denominator here is going to be m minus 7. So now we can put this on a common division line. We have, well, the denominator is going to be -m times m minus 7. This first numerator, 5m plus 1, we have to multiply this by -1 because that factor is missing in the denominator, right? So if we multiply this by -1, we're going to get -5m minus 1. And then this binomial stays the same, 4m plus 8. And now we just combine like terms in the numerator. -5m plus 4m is -m. And then we have -1 plus 8 is +7. So we're almost there in terms of simplifying this expression. What we're able to do in the numerator is we can factor out a -1, which means that we'll be able to cancel these two binomials that remain. So if I factor out a -1 in the numerator, I'm going to be left with +m and -7 divided by -m times m minus 7. So this binomial cancels this binomial. And I'm just left with -1 in the numerator and -m in the denominator. The negative signs cancel, and I'm left with 1 over m. And here the non-permissible value is going to be 0, so m cannot be 0. And if we go back, we'll see that over here, for example, here or here, there's another non-permissible value of m equaling 7. So m cannot equal to 7 either, because if it does, we can end up with a 0 in the denominator here, or even up here. Okay, so that's our simplified expression with the restrictions stated.